welcome to another Checiegirl Creations video. So today I'm creating another video for Shawn's creative team for 2018 to 2019. And this canvas that you can see there, I started it a long time ago and it just didn't become anything really. So I just put it aside for later, for when I felt inspired to try something again with it. So I thought now was the time, and especially with Shawn's stencils, sometimes I find using the stencils just helps me get into like the creative swing of things a lot faster. So I thought this canvas would be perfect to use with them. So I pulled out a few of her stencils, and both old and new. Some of them, the ones with the lighter blue packaging, are the new ones. So I've just put like a layer of white paint, and I've picked it up using a paper towel through that stencil. And I liked how that looked, but I thought that the image just wasn't really strong enough. So I've turned it the other way just to kind of, so that the stenciled image just doesn't look exactly the same. And I'm using some ultramarine blue to stencil in a few areas. And I like to work in uneven numbers. So normally there's like one of something or three of something, normally three of something, to create that kind of visual triangle. So I put three areas. And just to add some more of that color, I'm just going to wipe that around the edges of the canvas and around the canvas as well. And I thought that looked really nice, but I thought it'd be interesting to kind of add a tint of that color. So adding a tint means you're using white with that color. And I just added that around the canvas as well. I'm going to use this number stencil with some red, and I'll do the same thing. I'll stencil that in three areas, and then I'll go around the edges and the sides of the canvas. And when I'm doing canvases, I do like to paint the edges as well. I like to see my canvases like unframed, so that's how I normally do it. So you can frame it or have it unframed, however you like. So that's how I'm going to like incorporate the sides, by adding that color with the sponges. And now I'm going to go in with some yellow ochre. And these colors, like, not these colors really, because I do use these colors, but like this color combination is quite different for me. So like at one point I wasn't really sure if it was going to end up well, but I actually really liked how it looked, which is good. So I'm just adding that yellow ochre around the edges, as well as a tint of that color. And yeah, so this was quite a different canvas for me, and it was a lot more simple than that normally. I normally add loads of layers, loads of different colors, but I really basically stuck to like 3-4 colors. But yes, yeah, sometimes it's nice to kind of come out of your comfort zone and try something different, and I loved how this turned out. So I decided my focal image will be this kind of like daisy flower. And I use that same sponge I used for the yellow ochre. So when I use the white to stencil through, it does look kind of like yellowy. And I'm doing this like with the first white layer, just so that when I go over with color, it'll stand out from the background a bit more. And I also stenciled the words "create art." No real reason, I just thought it just looked good on it, and I mean it's artwork, so why not? And I'm going in with, this is definitely one of my favorites new stencils from Shawn's. I just really love those patterns, especially that kind of circly leopardy print kind of one. And I wanted to add that kind of light color around the edges, and I thought adding the stenciling would be perfect so that the edges don't look too plain, but then it doesn't look like there's too much on the edges. And that's like how I kind of finished off the edges. I mean, I'll go in with some other things, but that's like the main way I was happy with the edges look. So now I'm going to work more on the flower. So I'm stenciling using a brush. This is one of my like kind of banged up round brushes, so I don't mind using it as a stencil brush. But if you don't want to ruin your good brushes, because this can like kind of damage the bristles, definitely use a stencil brush or a makeup sponge. But I did want a kind of different texture from the makeup sponge. This kind of is a bit of a stippled kind of look. And you can see that when I'm adding the color, I'm adding a bit of a gradient, so it just has a bit more interest on it. And I'll also go in with the stems. So the middle of the flower is like purple with white, the petals are white, red and yellow ochre, and then the stem is ultramarine, yellow ochre and white. So I'm using the same colors that I've used for the background. And now I'm going to go in and add some more details like the shading and the highlights with a smaller brush. So it's quite simple really. Like I wanted to first of all darken like the top of those petals kind of from the middle of the flower coming down. I wanted it to be a much more stronger gradient. So I did that first, and now I'm going to go in with some more details. So like with the middle, I'm adding some more like ultramarine blue and red and the white for the highlights. And I'm imagining that the light is coming from the right, so that's where I'm putting my highlights, and of course the shadows on the left. And everything's kind of like blended in. So when I'm adding like my first layers of shadows and highlights, it tends to be blended. So like here I've added the red, but I'm not going to leave it strong and stark like that. I'm going to blend it in with the white and add some yellow ochre as well. I didn't want to lose that kind of orangey feel. So that's what I do first. Everything's all blended. And then once I'm happy with the blended layer, then I go in and add much stronger strokes that I wouldn't blend in as much. So once I finish with this layer, I'm going to go in with some stronger highlights. So you can see a much starker white, and it is blended in just a tad, but not too much. And I will go in and add another layer of white again. So there's my nice strong layer of white. And then I will do that on the middle and the stems. And I'll also go in with a strong layer of red, and that'll help it both stand out from the background and just kind of break it into sections a little bit, so it's not like one kind of blob of a petal. You can see that there's more than one petal. And I've just kind of made like where the petals and the middle of the flower meet a little bit not as tidy, because it's not very tidy. Normally it kind of has a bit of a pattern around it. So that's what I did there. And now I'm going to do the phrases. So I went in with the red and the ultramarine and some white to create that gradient. I wanted that kind of gradient theme to carry on through the canvas. And I'll do that as well on the word art, but I'll use red, yellow ochre and white. And again, you can see I'm stippling that with my paintbrush. And of course the images aren't standing out that well from the background. So you can see it, but you have to like try a bit too hard to like look at it. So I am going to go in and do my favorite things, add some black details with my calligraphy pen. I find this is a really organic way to add like the black details. Like the ink never goes on like smoothly in all areas, and especially on such a textured like background. It looks really nice. And as well, I can't ruin my calligraphy pen like I can with a fine liner. I'm always breaking my fine liners. But my calligraphy pen can write on almost anything, and it seems to live through whatever I put it through. So it's just perfect. So I'm going around the flower and the phrase to add my details, and on the side where there's supposed to be like the shading and the shadows, I'm going like pressing a bit harder to add like a thicker line of ink, just to kind of so you can see that difference, like where there's supposed to be shading, where there's supposed to be highlights. And I will go in and add some highlights later on after I've added all my like black details. And you can see this just really helps everything stand out. So I'm going to add a border now to my canvas using the applicator from the lid of the ink. And I'm sorry you can't see very well. I forgot to like zoom out. I was totally in like the moment. So kind of forgot I was filming, to be honest. So I just added a nice kind of thick inky border so that would ground the canvas, because the canvas was looking kind of floaty. So when you add a border, it helps the ground, especially with a dark color. And I'm going to also add some splashes, as you can see. The background was looking kind of plain, so the black splashes really helped. And I will grunge up the side of that canvas in a bit with some ink. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping forward too much. I'm adding the highlights now with the Uniball Signal gel pen. This is also a really good pen. I find I can pretty much write on almost anything. Still be careful, like you don't want to go in when there's wet paint because you can clog up the nib. But apart from that, it's fine. So all those highlights added, and I was really happy with how it was looking. And I'm also going to add some white splashes, and I'll add some gold splashes in a little bit. And I'll also apply the ink with my fingers like around the sides of the canvas. Once I added that border, the sides looked a bit plain as well, so I'm just going in and kind of grunging that up. And I'll also go around the top of the canvas in a few areas just to kind of widen that border, just in, not all over though, just in a few key areas where I felt like it was missing something. And I'll also do that with white paint and gold paint, and that'll just help finish everything off really nicely. So I love how this turns out, absolutely love it. Normally I sell my canvases, but I think I'll keep this one for my new room. I'm out of the country at the moment, so if you're watching on my channel, please do check out my newsletter link, and you can subscribe to my newsletter so you can find out when I'm back. So if you enjoyed the video, and I hope you did, please do give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to Shawn's channel, give us both thumbs up. Check out the other creative team members, they also have some gorgeous creations. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't forget to click that bell so you get notified whenever I upload a new video every Monday. And yeah, so if you got inspired, please do like tag me on Instagram. You can share my Facebook group, all that's linked below. That's on my channel if you're watching there. And I think that's it. So thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please join me again for another arty video. Bye.